Hey boys and girls, welcome to another super exciting, outrageous toy review. Today we're taking a look at Big Boss from the 1988 Hasbro toy line c.o.p.s and Crooks. Oftentimes this toy line is just shortened to c.o.p.s because the comic and cartoon show that were associated with it were just simply called c.o.p.s. c.o.p.s was actually an acronym for Central Organization of Police Specialists, and their big mission was to take down Big Boss and the rest of the crooks. I kind of want to start this review by showing Big Boss next to his nephew Berserko. Berserko is a little bit closer to a standard figure from this line. I just kind of want to show off the amazing variety of body types Hasbro worked into these figures. There's a couple characters that are a little skinnier, there's a lot of characters that are pretty average, and then Big Boss is actually very short and enormous. Look at how his waist comes well below Berserko's, but then he's got this massive torso, his head is very large, his hands are very big. I just think the way they designed these characters was really, really cool. So here we have Big Boss, and he is menacing. I do have to say that I always felt like they were walking a fine line with sort of copying the Kingpin from the Marvel Universe. It's a big mob boss type guy in a white coat. At least he's not bald. But I really like the detail they worked into this figure. There's a lot of personality in that face. As you move down lower, you'll notice that the buttons on his jacket are actually police badges. He's got lots of rings on his finger. His other hand is actually a vac metal. It's not really explained ever, as far as I can tell in the media, that I remember in the cartoon or the comic, why he has this mechanical hand, whether it's a glove or if it's actually like a cybernetic replacement. But c.o.p.s is set in the future, fighting crime in a future time. There are a lot of these futuristic elements combined with a 1920s mobster type era. It reminds me a little bit of the aesthetic that would be later used for the Batman the Animated Series, where there was modern technology but an old design aesthetic to everything. If you're not familiar with the c.o.p.s figures, they are much larger than G.I. Joe's, but they have a similar articulation style to those figures. Big Boss has a little bit of articulation at the head. It does not move real far side to side, and there's no real up or down motion with it. He's got swivels at the shoulders that hinge out to the side. He's got a swivel below that at the bicep there. There's a hinge at his elbow, and he also has a wrist articulation. That is actually a cool feature that G.I. Joe's did not have. Big Boss has a swivel at the waist. This is a little different from most of the characters. His sort of locks in there. It doesn't pivot at all. And he is held together with an O-ring, much like old G.I. Joe figures were. Down below here we have hip joints that move around. They use a similar J-hook type connection point, just like the G.I. Joe figures. The two halves of his legs are held together with screws, and then that creates a pivot point for his knee joint. Look at how short his shins are. Whew! Kind of like Cotton from King of the Hill. Maybe his shins got blown off in the war. Big Boss includes two accessories. One is his cane. This is a really gnarly piece of wood. It's got a face sculpted into the front here. Kind of looks like a bird. And this also contains an action feature common with all of the c.o.p.s toys. And I'm going to come back to that in one second, but this is a cap-firing cane. His second accessory is his weasel. It's made of a rubbery brown plastic. I always liked the pets in the G.I. Joe line, so I also liked that there were some pets in c.o.p.s. There is no painted in details on him, unfortunately, but he is wearing a harness. I don't really think it's cybernetic, but maybe he's a cyber weasel. All c.o.p.s figures came with some rolls of caps that can be used in their accessories. This is an original roll of caps that came with a c.o.p.s toy. I'm going to be using a roll of modern caps, though, for testing out his accessory, just because I don't want to waste these original official caps. These ones should work just fine. They're just a little skinnier. So here is the cane. This is the slot for the cap to go in. You can see, if you look carefully, the plunger in there that will pop the caps. I'm going to pull this out, and it stays out. You do have to be careful with these accessories. There's a really strong spring inside here, and I've had a couple of these cap firing accessories break over the years, or found broken ones in toy lots. So I can slide this in here. We should get a nice sound and a little bit of smoke. Alright, let's hope we got this lined up right. Got a little sound there. Around the same time as C.o.p.s and Crooks, Hasbro was getting some competition from Kenner with another futuristic C.o.p.s and Crooks toy line, RoboCop. These guys, armed with blue caps, had a much more dependable action that was also rapid fire. Because of their similar construction, like G.I. Joe's, C.o.p.s figures have a hole in their back that's perfect for backpacks, although that was rarely used in the C.o.p.s line. Not as much need for backpacks for police officers as there are for army soldiers. Big Boss was part of Series 1. There were only 2 series of figures created. The 3rd series was designed but never released. He was also the main bad guy in the comic and cartoon show. The cartoon show featured likenesses much closer to the toys than the cartoon. The cartoon had simpler designs and also much more cartoony designs. In the C.o.p.s and Crooks cartoon show, Big Boss was given that classic mobster parody voice. See here, Berserko. Make sure nothing goes wrong, boys. I'm practically surprised somebody wasn't named Muggsy. One other piece of commentary I had about the C.o.p.s figure toy line is that I always felt like they were hard to get to hold their accessories a lot of times. Their hands were more durable than G.I. Joe's, I would say. I don't think I've ever seen a C.o.p.s figure with a broken thumb. But their guns had very big, hard handles that were sort of a brittle plastic that felt very difficult to jam in their hands sometimes.
Walter? Walter, is that you? Don't you remember me from biology in high school?
Yeah, say.
Thanks for watching this super exciting, outrageous toy review. Make sure to like, subscribe, and check out our other videos.